What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So you might be wondering, we're in an urban environment. What am I doing with a straw bale just sitting in the front of my front yard? Which is a great question. Maybe my neighbors are wondering the same thing. But what I'm going to be doing is experimenting with a method of gardening called Straw Bale Gardening. So it was created by Joel Karsten, who wrote a really popular book about it. And it's something I've always wanted to try, but you know, in my head I thought I never could do it because I live in this urban environment. But I found someone to deliver 2 straw bales. I have another one right over here that I'm going to be using for mulch and things like that. But what you have to do, you can't just plant plants directly in your straw bale. You have to condition the bale, which basically is analogous to composting the interior of the bale, so it breaks down enough to start creating at least the beginnings of soil. And so what we're going to go over in this video, Straw Bale Gardening Part 1, is how do you actually condition this bale. So let's get to it. You dump some fertilizer, and he doesn't make a distinction between an organic one, like the one I have here, my Epic Soil Starter from Garden Maker Naturals, and a synthetic or more conventional fertilizer, but I do. So I'm going to try going with an organic approach, and I'm going to use my organic soil starter here, Epic Soil Starter, which is not as high in nitrogen as I would like, so I will probably end up supplementing with some nitrogen. But the first thing that you do, and this is a 12-day process, is you take 3 cups of organic fertilizer and sprinkle it over the top of the bale. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And what we're doing here is we want to feed effectively the composting process that's about to take place over the course of the next 12 to 18 days. So I'm just going to use 3 nice scoops here. And the next step here is to water it in to the point that this straw bale actually begins leaking out of the bottom. That's how we know that it's been appropriately soaked. And that's how we know that this fertilizer, at least at the beginning, has started to make its way down into the bale itself. So I'm giving myself a little bit of a border here, and we'll go ahead and get started with the watering right now. So we've watered this in really nicely. Day 1 of straw bale gardening is complete as far as conditioning the bale. Now the thing that I did not mention is that in a perfect world, you're going to be using warm rainwater so as not to disrupt the microbial life that's going on, the hot composting that's happening. But since this is just day 1, I'm not really worried about that, so I'm using just normal city water from the hose straight out of the tap, and that's completely fine day 1. Later on, what I'll do is I will put water into a bale, leave it out, not a bale, a bucket, leave it out, and then let the chloramine dissipate, as well as let it warm up nicely so it's closer at least to rainwater, because at least in my climate we don't get a lot of water. So let's go ahead and skip on to day 2 through 12. Stay tuned.
So as we go through and watch me go through the days 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 12, I figured what I'd do here is I would read off the organic schedule. So the schedule, if you're using organic fertilizer to condition your bale, which I assume most of you watching this channel will be following organic versus traditional, what you're going to do is for the first 6 days, you alternate. Day 1 is going to be 3 cups, and then day 2 you skip. And then day 3, 3 cups, day 4 skip, day 5, 3 cups, day 6 skip. Every single one of those days, you're going to be watering, ideally with warm rainwater. Now, when you get to days 7, 8, and 9, you're going to be cutting the amount of fertilizer that you use in half. And so days 7, 8, and 9 are going to be using 1.5 cups of fertilizer, and then you're watering in. Now, day 10, you bump it back up to 3 cups, but you use a fertilizer with more phosphorus and potassium than you would normally. Then, day 12, you have the option to wait 5 more days if you want to, or you can actually plant on day 12. Now, the one thing I would say that I didn't mention earlier in the video is in a perfect world, you're going to be using an organic fertilizer that is extremely high in nitrogen and relatively low in phosphorus and potassium from days 1 all the way through day 9. Only on day 10 does Joel recommend using potassium and phosphorus in your fertilizer.
It's time to check the temperature. And I only have 1 compost thermometer, so I'm going to go ahead and steal it from my hot composter, which is looking pretty nice if I do say so myself, at that 120 range. Not to brag. let's pull it out. And let's plop it in. And you know what I'm actually going to do first is water it, because I haven't watered it. So I'm going to put it in here, and then we're going to send some water on this bad boy. So the temperature is definitely going to drop a bit while I water in, but then I'm hoping that we have probably not a hot composting situation inside the straw bale, because that would be the dream, I guess you could say. There's just simply not the right ratio of ingredients in there, probably not enough aeration, probably not enough bacterial, microbial life, but we're going to see what we can get. And with the straw bale stuff, it's really not about perfect decomposition. It's about getting it decomposed enough so that it's loose and you can actually plant into it. And so that's what we're hoping for. And let's just, I'm just curious, what is the temperature going to be? So we'll finish watering this off and we will get to it. You know what I've noticed though is that, I don't know if you can see them, but there's little flies flying around all over the place. And that's because the fertilizer that I'm using, which is my Epic Soil Starter, it is a completely organic product. And so we've got some bone meal in there, we've got some blood meal in there. I've noticed sometimes that dogs will come by and sniff this because obviously they're smelling those animal products. And so, there we go. We're gonna go ahead and let this go. The moment of truth. Where are we at? Whoa, looks like the interior is around 120, which is not the ideal, but it's also not bad. It's a good spot to be in. So let's go ahead and put this back into our normal composter.
Now, again, I didn't want to show you every other day, and so we're past day 12 here, closer to day 18, and you can see it's broken up quite a bit. I haven't added anything but fertilizer except for this compost mixture you're seeing me add now, but the darkness that was on the hay bale right there, the straw bale, actually was coming from rotted out straw, and now you're seeing me add a little bit of organic compost, a little bit of worm castings, just to work it in there and get something a little more loose and friable. This is not a recommended step. It is just something I wanted to do to add a little bit more organic matter in there and really juice it up. And now we're doing those potatoes. So if you've seen my other videos, please go check those out in the upper right-hand corner on how to prepare and plant seed potatoes. It's going to be the exact same method. I'm just using some other potatoes that I hadn't used yet. It's a mix of all blue, russet, and all red varieties, all nicely scabbed over with nice chits coming up. So we're going to see how actual potatoes do in a straw bale. Now, I've heard from a few different readers and watchers of the YouTube channel that potatoes absolutely thrive in a system like this, so I'm very excited to see how that does. I have yet to grow anything in a straw bale, so this is my first round of an experiment with the old straw bale gardening method. So definitely comment down below. I hope that was a good overview, though, of how you go about taking a bale that you might just grab off Craigslist or from a farmer or a nursery, conditioning it so it rots down, and then getting it ready to plant. And not to say you have to plant tomatoes. You can plant anything you want. Potatoes, tomatoes, there's an entire list of things to grow in the straw bale method. And, you can pretty much grow everything you could grow in a normal garden. So I'm just, top dressing with a little bit more of my organic compost and worm castings mixture, watering that in, and then working that back into the soil. And until next time, guys, I will be doing updates on this and other videos on the channel. So good luck in the garden, keep growing, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.